Progress.
Oh,
Well, wait, not to.
we got that.
She sounded angry. I understand.
Okay, participants,
Aggressive.
admit. Admit. And share my screen here.
I gotta get to that cheese factory.
Go for the string cheese. The string cheese, they have the regular, but they also have this stuff that's the size of your pinky.
Yeah.
Comes in a bag, whatever. I don't know. I love it. These are good. Yeah, they have. Ready?
I am ready.
All right, I call this meeting to order. We have a full agenda tonight, are we recording?
Yeah, we're
Yeah,
ready.
Okay,
Oh, it says not hearing anything, turn up volume.
the volume really high.
I think we're okay.
Okay, just do a check, maybe they'll get back and be like, I can't hear you yet. Full agenda, I am going to stay with the order if it is then, because last time I bumped it around, I missed something on it, so just so we don't miss anything, we'll start with board development. And first up, I have Tina and Dan with a draft of the board evaluation survey.
Yeah. Got a little summary for you, unless you jump
no.
in. Okay, you,
I'll add, I don't have much.
all right, sounds good. Okay, so this kind of goes hand in hand with, a couple of different things. Our objective was to, fulfill our obligation in following policy number 8110. And it's specifically down there, where it says, towards the bottom, specifically, the board shall evaluate the board's performance as well as that of the superintendent on a regular basis, identifying areas of strength and areas in need of improvement. So we were strictly focusing on, evaluating the board's performance. So the process and so out of committee, Dan and I were the subcommittee, that took a hold of that and said, hey, let's put something together, bring it back to committee, see what it thinks. And so Dan and I met, we talked over some questions that we have to pose to you a little bit later. But we took, so we developed a survey with the intent that it could be easily administered and at the end of each meeting, if we so desire, and then results could be compiled. And so it was kind of a quick project. We took an existing WASB survey and then also took a look at the board retreat results from last October and some of the things that we had wished to bring forward to the board and roles and responsibilities, meeting norms, those kinds of things, and melded the two, kind of went back and forth and developed a survey. Let's see. And so then we also consulted with Lynn as far as format, that kind of thing. And so she recommended Google Doc because the results then can be compiled into an Excel spreadsheet, which you see tonight under administrative content. And so what we would like to do, we have some questions here that Dan and I were talking through that we came up with as far as, posing to the committee, and then perhaps having whoever's here present tonight wouldn't mind taking the actual survey to see if that meets some of our objectives. It took me less than 5 minutes when I took it. I took it twice today. It took me less than 5 minutes. We did a little tweak on there. And so some of the questions that came out of it as far as purpose is concerned is what do we want to learn from the survey? Okay. Is it something we would take at the end of each meeting? How can we use it as an evaluation tool? For example, like, would we share out results quarterly then, or at the board retreat? Would we have the results go to the president or leadership or something like that? Or would the evaluation, evaluation is, a loose form. We talked about even, like, maybe it's positive shout outs at the end of a meeting or, something like that. So, that's kind of time, is anything or anything you want to add?
No, and I appreciate using the pronoun we, you did the heavy lifting, and I was there, but, I would, personally, at the end of a 4-hour meeting, I'd rather do it for homework. And so I thought about that possibility, rather than at the end of that night, taking it. Tina found a lot of questions that were redundant. And sort of combined them into one question, so, we didn't, spend time where we didn't have to. But, and good leaders self-evaluate anyway. They're always asking about themselves, so I don't think any of this is threatening in any sense, so. But we're willing to listen, so, thanks.
Yeah. Yeah, so if you don't mind going through it right now, that fits our time frame. And then if there's questions on some of the questions, or if you're like, oh, how does this fit in? Or suggestions on how we can make it better so that we can bring it back and implement it as soon as we can.
Mine for some reason doesn't show up under administrative content,
Oh,
but I don't love the meeting,
Wow.
so.
yeah, there should be two.
Can I just come look over your shoulder?
Yeah,
Just to
yeah.
be a part,
Come on over.
just for the sake of time. I'll have to shut everything down.
So there's,
Whatever, so.
You have to go back in.
yeah, so there's,
Back in.
so
But I don't wanna-
there's two items
Reload the page and.
in administration.
Yeah, it should look, your screen should look like this up there on the agenda. Are the rest of your screens looking like that?
So, yeah, click the first link.
Yeah, the first link.
And so what I did is I just went through and just kind of marked all the same answer, because it's a test. And then the second link shows the results. So yeah, Lori, you can go in there. It was just,
Yeah.
we just typed.
Yeah, I did that earlier too. I just didn't submit it because I didn't want to mess.
Oh, yeah, nope, 'cause we're in the
Um,
testing stage.
Would you be updating the link each time or for each meeting, or would you be having the same link? Because if it's the same link, all of this stuff will go into the same spreadsheet, so you'd have to provide a new link each time you copy. It's easier to copy the
Okay.
form.
I think Lynn is willing to do that piece of it, so I don't know what makes the most sense, but I'm sure we can. Would it be best, do you think, to have it separate for each meeting?
I think so, because then you can just output the responses for each meeting, otherwise everything's together in the same sheet.
Everything's together in the same sheet, but I believe it timestamps it, so you could just, use your data to.
You could filter, but you should
Filter.
filter them by that, that's perfectly acceptable too.
And then you're not going between a bunch of different sheets. Let's say, you wanted to have your own performance over time. Right? And we wanted to filter just for Fred Yacht, right? We could do that for you. Otherwise, we'd have to take one line from each sheet, pull them together.
I'm saying that, just create a new tab in the month, and just do a VLOOKUP and pull over things over with the date for that month. And then you could do it that way too. So, an Excel nerd, so.
Okay, I am not.
First and six ways from Sunday.
Yes.
Yeah, whatever, I mean, I'm sure we can accommodate whatever
Yeah.
ways easiest to be able to determine and to look at trends. You know, and things like that are something that, you know, if we're able to have time at our, retreat or
Are
whatever.
we looking to do this just for the regular board meeting, or are we looking to do it for anything else? Historically, we've only done it for the regular board meeting.
I mean, I think the initial thought was just for the regular board meeting.
We start there.
Start there and grow.
So I do have one question on one, the administrators who were present were adequately prepared to address the topic. That to me seems like we're evaluating the administrators and not the board.
And I had that same question.
So I don't think that should be.
Even the
part of
first
that.
two, the board's packet was sufficiently
Yeah,
comprehensive.
that
They're
could be-
preparing that, not a, you know,
Yeah,
so if this is if we think about, is it a board evaluation of the full board meeting, or is it a board self-evaluation? It feels like the two are melded into one,
right.
but then maybe we should, you know, is there a delineation? Is all of the full board stuff here and self-evaluation later? I didn't evaluate that piece.
I mean, I could even see. Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
I think it all just kind of speaks to preparedness. And so if we
But the board has no
weren't prepared, right?
ownership on that.
Yeah, but what I hear Tina saying is, like, you can evaluate yourself on preparedness, but if you didn't have the tools to help you be prepared. It's good to have that data along with it, right? It's like I say to you guys, I can only get to excellent if you guys are excellent too, right? I mean, like,
Wouldn't it be
that,
good?
because we interact and depend on each other for our performances, right?
But wouldn't it be better served then to say, you know, the question of, were you prepared for the meeting? Yes, no, whatever, and then you could put a reason statement in a box underneath of, if I choose that I wasn't prepared, why? And then you could say, the packet was, you know, wasn't that great, or whatever. I think that is what we're trying to get at with those first two questions, isn't it?
I don't know, I wasn't in the room when they had the discussion, but.
I'm just, yes.
That could be, I think we were trying to, yeah, I mean, we can phrase it that way. I think it was, you know, when we're looking at like, okay, how do we operate? How does the board meeting operate and the different components that are involved in that? And so then it just breaks it down to those specific things that we can take a look at. I mean, I don't care how we present it. I'm hoping to, we took those from WASB. Yep.
Yeah.
Oh,
So going back to the one comment that, you know, the self-evaluation, there's one I question, did I in the full beginning, otherwise the rest of them are full board kinds of things. And then in the section where it says open-ended questions, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There are 6 that are still multiple choice. Maybe that just has a different heading, move that I
Yeah.
question there, you know, and then the open, you know.
Yeah.
Or
We can
that
tweak
instead of open-ended or
Because-
self-evaluation, that could just be a different title even, or nothing.
Right.
This is great.
This is wonderful.
We like what you've done, which is why we're asking questions.
Yeah, no, that's about.
Yeah, it wasn't.
And
I was just
what
trying
we-
to-
Oh, yeah, no, oh, yeah, no, yeah, we need to take all this in. The reason it says open-ended questions up at the top is we had those initially listed and then I emailed Linda and said, oh, can we switch those to these? So, yeah, so there are some things that need to be cleaned up. So those are things we need to know about.
Well, there's one question in here, I'm sorry.
No.
That one.
Go ahead.
There's one question in here, did I go off topic, did I go off topic or agenda and was it helpful? And then the next question, in that same line says, did I stay on track in regards to the topic? Those two different questions.
Yeah, maybe they were melded on accident together.
That could be. Those seem redundant.
Well,
Different
did I
one of
stay
them?
on track in regards to the topic? Did I go off topic? Are those, isn't that like an oxymoron? Are they're kind of juxtaposing each other?
Yeah, I did list that one as that one needs to be reworded or
Oh,
something with it. In my own little notes there.
One comment that Lynn had made was that if we want to put some kind of directions or something, at the top, that's very easy to be done. There's a whole section for header area that she can do that. Just let her know what you want or what we want to have put there, and that's not a problem. She's willing to do that. I did a little background information. This will not be ready for the board meeting on Monday. Not fair to ask, in my opinion, not fair to ask of Lynn, getting it tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock or whatever, when her day starts, to have it ready for a Monday, a note. So a few little tweaks here and then we can put that out at a future
Well,
meeting.
we've lived without it for a while. We can live another.
Well, and if it's
Yeah.
done as homework, if it's something, it doesn't necessarily have to be done at the meeting, it could be sent out via email the week after, or whatever. My point is I don't think it's fair to put that piece onto Lynn
No.
to make those fixes and changes. And then, hey, how does it, I know what it's like when I'm creating something, how does this look? Well, I don't know what, and that could take too much time, so. As much as I
Try to
like
get
to
it.
get there.
The August board. What you can do before, great, but otherwise, yeah.
Yeah. For sure. Okay. Any other feedback? This is very awesome.
Hey.
The first round.
I like the concept, a couple of thoughts I had, I don't know how logistically we would wanna go about, implementing it. Is it necessary to have, for it to be identifiable, or can it be anonymous? Because if you want some meaningful participation, maybe anonymous is the way to go. The other concern is, I should say, the concern is, how do we make this compliant with open records request? Because that's likely what would mean that you're creating a public document, by these surveys. How is that going to be, able to be provided easily for somebody who might ask?
This spreadsheet can be downloaded and provided electronically, or we do a print off. It's not a big deal. It'd be more of a matter of, storing them and where do we store them, that sort of thing, and keeping the, naming whatever, so that we know that we have them in case something comes up. We don't just lose like another file.
Sure.
It would have to be stored with any other board
Right.
collected documentation, so you need to have a process for that.
So that sounds like that has an answer. The first question, would you agree, Craig?
Yeah.
For at least, we're gonna learn and grow through it.
Right.
The first question you asked, is it anonymous or do we put a name to it? I don't know if anyone has a clear, if someone has a clear answer, speak now, please. My initial thought is we don't have one, so it makes sense to me to start anonymous.
I agree.
And then if we find that this information isn't posing itself value because we don't know who said it or whatever, then maybe we shift or we break it into two smaller, this survey, we're asking these pointed questions and we can put a name to it or whatever.
Yeah.
But I don't know if we have an answer that's valid because we haven't done it before. I don't know what other districts
Right.
do.
Well, your questions aren't required, right?
I saw one required. I don't know how many of them are required to answer.
I think they're all required.
I was gonna say,
Okay.
if you make name not required, then it's optional.
Oh.
You can be anonymous, you just fill it out, whatever.
Yep.
But if you wanna put your name on it, you can.
And I think,
But I
But-
don't think that if 8 people put their name on it,
Exactly.
one doesn't want to be, I just think, what's the point of having the names on it?
I would argue that there's only 9 of us, and if you're going to go through, you can eliminate your questions. You could probably figure out who they are. It's not a large pool to sample from.
What is the benefit of having a name?
I don't,
I mean,
what's the benefit for being anonymous with this group?
More honesty, it's proven with surveys.
I think as far as like what comes out of that, like what do we want to learn from it? I think that, I guess if I would actually like to have my name on it, because then if I'm submitting something and I would like to, like some return feedback or some return information on something that I maybe brought up in there, then I know that if you're the one looking over it, then I know that, okay, great. I don't know, it's like, I don't know how I'm getting honest feedback. But I don't know, maybe that,
Well, I just feel if it's a self-evaluation, it's a self-evaluation. If it's a
Right.
board as a whole evaluation, it's a board as a whole. So if we're gonna have questions that are evaluating how we are processing as a whole, I have no problem with my name on it. We're all part of the board, we all have input on that. But if I'm self-evaluating, that's for me. That's not for Fred or Tina, to, you know what I mean? There is a difference there, and our policy does talk about it being different, you know, there's self-evaluation, and there's, so that's just my thing, I just think,
Well, this could be broken into two evaluation pieces.
right.
It could be the board
That was gonna be
evaluation.
my other thing, I wondered if we should do. Yeah,
I think we also need to keep it simple,
Correct.
or we're not gonna do it, and then we're not in compliance as to why we started out for it. So either, I mean,
I will
To
point
me,
out
I don't
that
care.
the policy states evaluate the board's performance. Not a self, it doesn't say board
It does
members'
talk about
performance, it
self.
says board's performance.
There's a self-evaluation
There's a
somewhere in
self-
some policy. I just don't remember
Yeah.
which one.
or
But that
The
particular
only
one that you
policy
referenced.
8170, it talks about the board and then it says. Board members are encouraged to use the evaluation process as an opportunity to assess their own personal performance. Am I looking at the right one?
Mhm.
Well, yeah, but I'm saying on below where it says specifically the board shall. You're encouraged there, but your board shall.
Are you in 8110?
I am in 8110, yes.
And she
board
was
president
referencing
to-
8170.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah,
Oh, which one are you in?
I'm in
There-
8110.
And that's where it comes in two different places.
Mhm.
And so
Another thing is Neola, does Neola have matching in this? Or I thought I saw that there wasn't.
Not in 8170.
Okay. Knew there was one of them, so.
I mean, whichever way we go with it, I guess we thought from the self-evaluate, if you have evaluation of self. I think that fits into, even coming off of the board retreat as far as, how am I doing as a member of the whole? And roles and responsibilities, and to take us from good to great. That's kind of what drew, how we operate efficiently, and so how am I operating it as a part of the whole, and how is the whole operating, was just kind of the idea of it.
I like the concept, I just want it to be useful tool, that's provides meaningful, feedback, and I don't know how seriously we wanna, push it. I mean, I
I'm more
want.
casual about it,
Right,
but.
right. If it's beneficial for me to take some of these things that, the evaluation is, presenting. And it's constructive, and I'm going to be able to, implement some changes that are beneficial, then great, if not. If it's used to chastise one another as like terrible thing, then. I don't want no part in that, you know what I mean?
So it sounds like we need to put the work in, take a stab at it. It's a first time through, so there's gonna be maybe some bumps, maybe some bruises, maybe some clear sailing, and learn and grow. And I know, as I talked to Tina about this, the hope was to have at least a couple of those surveys under our belt before we get into the board retreat that'll happen this fall. And then, learn from that, okay, what are suggestions we have moving forward? These questions are great, it helped us. These questions, yeah, it didn't really give us so much. This was too long. At least by doing it, we can figure out what's working and what's not working. So am I hearing that that's kind of the direction that we want to go?
If we're doing it every month, are we going to also reflect at all? I don't know if that's like a 5-minute reflection the following month. I know that's what a lot of boards do when they do self-evaluation. They then talk about, because unless you have like, okay, we're noticing this would be our goal for our next month. You know
Well,
what I'm
and,
saying? Like,
but that's where one of the questions is, who's collecting this, how are we evaluating it? Today's purpose, and maybe it's not ready to go to the
Because if we're not
board
doing
yet,
anything with it, it doesn't.
but
really do
we
you
need to
good.
answer those questions,
Right.
but we don't, I don't know if we can do that yet without
You know, the results are.
seeing
I mean,
where
we
it goes
do-
from
if
there.
If we take a look at it as far as like, okay, if we want to share it out at the, board retreat, maybe that's
That's what I'm
or maybe it's a quarterly, kind of thing. I don't,
Well,
I
I,
think part of it is we're getting caught up in the word self there, because we're talking about this as the board as a whole, as a collective. And it's the self-evaluation of the board by its members of the board and its actions, not necessarily individuals. I know 8170 says you have this opportunity to encourage you to do this. But I think this tool is for board members to evaluate how the board does things. Can we improve on things? Our process is good. I think that's where the self-evaluation part of it is coming into. As a board, as an individual member, me filling out a form on how I'm doing that I'm not gonna necessarily have readily access to, and the responses, I don't know if I would go back and see those for my own benefit. There are other ways for me to, self-evaluate. But as a board member, putting those comments in that we're putting together as a whole board and saying, hey, here are these thoughts that we've pulled together over the last quarter from all of our meetings. And how does this, what does this say about how we're doing with things?
Right.
That seems to have more benefit to me.
so back to one of the points Tina made earlier. Who is going to be the keeper of the stars? So is it going to, who gets to see the results? Who's collating the results? Is that the board president, or is that going to be Tina and Dan as part of that committee? Are we bringing this then initial results back to September planning? So we can now set a purpose then, what's it gonna look like for the retreat? Or are we putting Dan and Tina in charge of all of that? Let's have a brief discussion here. We are way past the 10-15 minutes we had originally, so we just need some direction moving forward because we don't want this work to be for nothing. Thoughts? No schools.
I guess my initial thought was either, maybe it goes to, like, I guess I feel like it should, I don't care if it comes as subcommittee or whatever, but I guess I'm thinking like, okay, leadership direction that way. So I'm thinking either president of the board or chairperson planning, I guess was kind of where I was leaning towards there. If we bring it back to planning, we've only taken it, I don't know if we take it in July or not, like the week, like later,
week after.
or whatever. So if we bring it to September, we've had two, July and August. I don't know if that's enough it doesn't seem like to me that that's enough,
But it's
but,
enough for us to see if there's any glaring things that need to be fixed.
like evaluating it.
You wouldn't, probably would be enough to evaluate the data, but to evaluate, it's enough to evaluate the process.
Oh, okay,
Mhm.
gotcha. Yeah, that's fine then.
We didn't want to create more work for somebody,
Right.
No.
if it's gonna be valuable or not, but, I can be a tough grader. So.
I hear you volunteering.
And it's, it's not like the policy or anything puts like, oh, you have to do it every month. I mean, we could take this survey once a quarter if we wanted,
Sure.
but we just thought like, as far as, okay, well, how am I doing? Being that reflective piece that it might help do.
I have a
these.
question a little bit more about the intent too.
Mhm.
Is the intent for you as an individual to look at your own data? Or is it the intent of the board to culminate everybody on the board and talk about how we're all doing as a group?
I think the first one, I think that's what we thought, right? It was self-evaluation.
I think kind of both
Both?
of those pieces, because then it too, I think if we see trends, like,
Okay, then either way, I make this suggestion. As Lynn works for you guys directly too, in her stead as deputy clerk, have her be the administrator of the data. Then if you as an individual want the data, she can pull off your individual work. And at the request of the chair or the president, she can pull that off for whatever agenda item it needs to go to. And then it can be put in executive content, which is where we would always put any evaluation data of anybody else, right? My data is an employee, your data is an employee, you know, whatever, because you get paid to be on the board, right? I mean, you're elected, but you're also an employee of the district. We would put it in executive content, however you guys wanted it. It could be either in a folder for just each individual, right? Or we could have, a culminated piece, however you want it. But she'll have the keys and it'll be between you and her, right? That way you don't have to worry about myself and the rest of the administration, digging into your self thoughts or whatever it is, right? And that's probably one of the best ways to house it.
So quite two questions in that. One, and it might be a question for Lynn, but normally with a survey like this, you can set it up so that you get emailed your responses.
Yeah, you can.
And so if we set up so you get email your responses, we don't have to have her do the work of splitting this up
That's
or
true.
whatever. You just get.
You'd only have to culminate it, and that's why I asked the first question I asked,
So,
when you said both, I was like, well, she may have to pull more data then.
so I got a question here, it goes back to the first part of it is there value in having an anonymous comment box for board leadership? Because if it's anonymous, and if it goes to board leadership, or we're looking at this collectively, we feel there's a value in that, that's a different proposition than self-evaluation, that's not necessarily, but you can still get that email with reviewing your own comments, but just putting that out there too.
What's the purpose of an anonymous comment from a board member to board leadership? Wouldn't you want a name to it?
Well, I'm a person, put your name on it. You're gonna say it.
I'm asking the,
But
I think that's kind of been our
people,
policy.
some people may be
Right.
more comfortable not being anonymous on this. And so, but is there a value in that, in having that anonymous of going through and seeing, here we've got a collective of a group of comments that meetings are going too long. We're having administrators, they're talking way too long about their, in their presentations. That sort of thing. So, I mean, do we want to have that as part of this? Usually I get that kind of stuff anecdotally after the meetings.
I was
But
just gonna say, I think that's kind of, if there was a concern, we would reach
know.
out to you anyways.
But is it,
You know what I
is
mean?
it good to
And is
have
that
that
evaluation?
data?
yeah,
You
but
know what I
it's,
mean, that you can see?
well, yeah, I mean, or is it if, does it make it more accessible, that's the word I'm looking for, but if it's readily available, I can just go and click this link and then go in and shoot off a message, and then we quarterly pull these together and see what we're doing. Is there value in that?
I'm gonna go about 3 minutes left on this.
I just have two comments.
Did you have your hand up, Sam? I
Yeah.
saw a thing that I went
yeah.
down, so I wasn't sure if you were up, down,
Yeah,
so.
questions 9 through 14, I think I'm gonna think about for the next meeting, but I did want to point out right away. As a board, with the way that things are going in the community, we should really be moving away from political language in everything that we do. And I think in particular, question number 11, that's column N on the self-evaluation responses example. As it's, the question is, was I respectful of diversity in opinion? The word diversity has a very politicized connotation in today's day and age. And I think it would be better phrased, did I respect the right of others to have different opinions?
Or just do it, I respect others' opinions.
Yeah. Mhm. Because I understand, I mean, yeah, as a board, we should be civilly engaging with each other. So I think that, I think it would be better phrased that way. Diversity means a lot of things to a lot of people.
Okay,
So personally, I don't see the harm in making it optional, whether or not it's, your name is anonymous or not.
optional or anonymous or both? original is
Optional
optional.
or your name.
Okay, got it, sorry, I thought you meant survey optional.
Yeah, well, cause I mean, I wanna participate in stuff like this, but if it's gonna be used in a way that's nefarious, I'm not going to participate in it. I'm just letting you know about that. I wanna participate in that, and if I feel like it's nefarious, I'm done.
Well, I would hope that we would have that conversation
Right.
before you say, I'm done, just, hey, this is, because I don't
Well,
think any
I'm
intent is that way.
letting you know now.
Right, but I'm just, before we get to the being done, just,
Right.
hey, I'm not seeing value in this, or I don't like where this is going, having that conversation.
Right.
Before we, because maybe there's something, like Sam just pointed out, a word that was there that you don't think of, maybe there's something that you have issue with. So just having the open
Sure.
conversation.
I'm like, no,
No.
okay.
Mm.
The other part about it is, this is, this has been in, it doesn't have a Neola match and has, and just seeking a recommendation from the committee if, we want to continue with, 8170 as board self-evaluation to find a home for it, somewhere, somehow as policy.
Hold that thought, that's next on my agenda list.
Okay.
Is there anything else based on we have 1 minute left anything left on the survey? Going through it, you guys have direction on where to go with it?
Will it be a doc that we can access? I'm sorry, I know we kind of talked about it. Is it gonna be like on our
Google Form.
agenda? Okay, all right.
This one will
Sometimes
come,
it can get tricky to try to go back and find it, so I
Yeah.
didn't know if there was gonna be like that easy access place every month.
I mean,
for at
we
least the
could
next
put it
couple months.
in the administrative content at.
Yeah,
at the end
she'll
of
be
the
able to link
board-
it.
Okay,
At
perfect.
the board
You know
agenda.
how, you know, what I
Yep.
mean?
I'm gonna
Sometimes it's like,
suggest
wait,
we-
where did I find this?
that's what I was gonna
Because
say.
if you don't make this active, passive participation, people will stop after 2 months. You get in front of them, here, you need to fill this out.
So start with an email and
I
then,
don't care how you guys want to.
Right. and
I
then,
just need to make sure that we communicate to Lynn. how
yeah,
it's
so
gonna be
Lynn
done.
could just after the day of the board meeting or after the board meeting, send out a link that has, here's the Google form for the board evaluation piece.
Okay,
That
Mhm.
would be easy.
I know if I do not do it that night, I will not do it. It'll fall off my radar.
Agreed.
All right,
Perfect.
so
Just-
next on the list was policy 8170. 8170 is, as Craig said, a no match with with Neola. Do we want this? And this is not a topic that we're going to go into tonight, but I wanted to plant the seed and it'll be our topic on next planning agenda. That, do we want this as our guiding document for our operational goals?
No, I have
Never mind this.
8110.
Well, 8110 is our goal.
8110 has the
Yeah.
board evaluation, 8170.
Right, and I don't have 8170.
I don't
but-
do
8170 is a self-evaluation.
It's a self-evaluation. It's not listed on the agenda here today.
Okay,
Should be going.
so that was an error in that.
No.
Either way,
Yeah.
because 8170 was supposed to be. Anyway, take a look at both of those policies for next month. As we will look through, are there changes? 8170 doesn't have a match. Are there suggested changes? Do we want to use that as our guiding principles? Does it box us into anything? So that'll be our deeper discussion. Too deep for today, because there's a lot of other pieces that can go with it. So take the time and kind of look from there.
You had two
I just-
people.
Time out, or we also have with 81, I have 8170 here with the superintendent, the board evaluation, creating a new strategic plan, all of those things. Do we put this in the parking lot for now? And say, hey, we have enough other things on our plates right now? So that's just the piece that we're gonna really have that discussion on. So anyway, 2 hands. Dan?
Can we add other self-evaluation questions of ourselves that we created? You know, well, beyond the questions that we're gonna decide on, what was it, 24? Or how many total questions do we have? It was 20. Okay, so if I have a question that would be unique to that meeting, that I would evaluate myself with that.
So then maybe we just have an other box that is open-ended, that comments can be added to that. Would that suffice? Okay, fine.
Just wanted to mention that 8110, the Neola match was PO 0122 under board powers. And
Can you say it one more time?
it is 0122. Board powers,
One,
and it's already been approved as a bylaw that we are. So it does cover a lot, it pretty much covers everything that 8110 does, but if we miss something, let us know.
So we should, what you're,
It's more 8170 that probably.
Should we be-
Direction as to what we should do as a policy committee with.
well, what I'm wondering is, should we start with 0122? And then is there anything missing? Cause that's what we've already approved. Putting the lens of planning into that.
Yeah.
As opposed to starting with 8110. You know, start with the work that's already been approved. That's what I'm-
there.
What do you think, Mr.
Well,
Policy.
I think you're on the right track. I agree that maybe look at 0122. And if there's a need, if there's a desire to continue with 8170 for board self-evaluation, maybe it's housed under board powers. Because I don't know if there's another policy that would align with 8170 and Neola at this point.
We'll have that discussion further next month. So I'm here, just to make sure I'm hearing correctly. 0122 is the Neola. 8110 was what was merged to that. We need to just take a brief look at that. All should be good, but just putting eyes on it. And then 8170 is a no match. And so looking to see of those things. Do those things then fit under 0122? Can it go there? Maybe it has to stay as a separate policy. We'll just have that discussion and see. Does that sound, do I have it accurate?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would seek a recommendation from the committee.
Yep.
Policy, I don't
Yep.
know, policy committee to trust that, I think.
No, that's what. All right, anything else on that? Fabulous. Then next up, board development. Subcommittee met. I don't know, about a month ago, a few weeks ago, to talk about putting together a plan for board development. More than just, hey, we're doing this next month, kind of scoping it out for the year. Do you have that? You would have, you guys have it on yours, you don't need to pull it up. That should have been in the content.
Yep.
Which part are you talking?
They have it, it's the.
Board development ideas.
Yeah. So we started with the board development ideas worksheet. And we brainstormed topics that we felt would be possible discussion points for board development. We used the information from the board retreat as topics. We used information that was suggested through WASB, different areas, et cetera. Did you pull things from your conversation with Drew? I thought you had some things there.
Yeah, yeah.
So we had those topics. And then after discussion of what the value of those were, et cetera, kind of put those into months. When we could possibly do those. And then if you look down on the next page of that, if we put those to a calendar. It's trying to get all of those things covered. The question thus becomes then, is this going to be at the end, or is this going to be infused into a board meeting? Is this going to be a separate meeting? Is this going to be the board retreat? Where do those things kind of lie? So this is the draft that we came up with for the planning committee calendar. Please take a look at it. And is there anything, any comments, any whatever that we need to discuss at this point in time? Just kind of giving an FYI that this is kind of the direction we're looking at.
So when you say planning committee calendar, I was a little confused because it's not all things that are happening.
So with it,
So I don't
that's,
know if we want to.
that's my error, because you'll see
You
it
get what
it
I'm
melds
saying?
into the next part, so that was a copy
Yeah,
and
it
paste.
took me a hot second. I was like,
mistake in
I'm so
that.
confused.
So with that, then, can you pull up the document that I shared with you? That is the planning committee calendar,
They certainly can. Give me a minute.
please. So what I did then is, we're trying to put together a calendar that has planning committee stuff on it. And it's very, very fluid over the year and a half. I struggle with that because I'm very logical sequential. How do we become more transparent? How do we make that more transparent? We've never had, this is what we do in this month. This is because we've been flying by the seat of our pants.
Yeah.
But we have a little more structure going forward. And one thing that's been lacking, I like looking at, hey, this is what's coming up at the next meeting. This is what we know from there. Except like I shared at our
I'm talking this
meeting.
sheet right here.
Yes. Like I shared at a meeting a month ago, what I have for my calendar has my notes on it, that when someone brings up a topic like the 8170 and 0122, I put that into my notes and, okay, we agreed as a committee, it's going into this month. But my notes are with it, that's bigger than a calendar. So that's where I thought, okay, what if I meld the two together, where I took the agenda items that we've agreed upon for this month, and I put those in with the planning committee calendar that you kind of just saw. So then month to month, when the agenda is approved, that will then go by there. So now you can see, okay, we talked about that in this month, or this is forthcoming, or whatever. Is this something that would be beneficial to you? Would you rather not have what you see for today's meeting on there and just leave it for the overarching kinds of things, like when we have, if there's a superintendent meeting, if there's a whatever, I try to put those on there. The data meetings were on there in the past, but we'll talk about those here in a little bit. Some months don't have meetings, that's why they're, there's a blank space in them. Some, like the superintendent and board evaluation, December something, that could be a January, it's a placeholder. Right now, we don't have those dates set.
It feels like it's almost sort of like agenda planning, just to make sure that we're carrying through the different responsibilities of the planning committee. So, I mean, I think it's a good idea to have that document, so then people are like, wait a second, are we even doing this? Whatever, name the topic, it's like, oh, yep, that's when it's up and coming. I mean, I think it's a great communication tool. I don't think it would hurt anything.
Okay.
I guess so like August, where it says attorney basics, that's regular board meeting. So that's not coming to planning.
So
I guess that's where I'm still kind of like,
that's a board, remember that was on the board, the blue ones,
right?
sorry, my
Okay.
color coding, those came from the board development calendar.
Okay,
So attorney basics will either be the planning committee chair, or I know Fred and I have talked about that Fred, I believe,
Yeah.
was putting together as part of the board meeting.
It's all ready to go.
but that,
Okay.
then, so planning has nothing to
Nope.
do with it. So that's where I guess I'm wondering if that's helpful for planning. I mean, that's helpful for the board meeting. We know what's coming for the
But
board.
it came out of planning under board development. That's
Yeah, so the blue ones are,
It's
Yeah.
planning topics.
Gotcha.
yeah,
blue ones.
the blue ones are professional development opportunities that the planning committee put together.
Gotcha. So it's not what we're gonna do as a planning committee per se. So that's separate. Okay, that's where I had to get.
Other people may
You know, a lot
do
of our
those.
committees have our calendars are like, this is what we're gonna be seeing on our agenda, and that's where I think I'm missing.
Our committee
That
is
makes sense
different
now.
though, because we're setting course for district things.
But we also have work to do at the committee level. So I guess I'm wondering, would it be helpful to have a plan, maybe not now, to know what's gonna be, especially with the strategic plan? I think there's gonna be a lot of work that planning is gonna have to do once the strategic, I'm assuming.
That'll
plan
be,
gets
Yes.
this is a work in progress.
Okay, so
That'll get added to
Okay,
this.
perfect.
This is what we have right now.
It's just been very.
Only because
it's been
there was-
kind of bouncy,
right,
it's been a
only-
little confusing.
Yeah. This is what they have right now, only because there was a subcommittee that dealt with board development,
Okay.
right? There's probably gonna be a subcommittee that deals with, strategic plan and moving forward.
Referendum.
And there's one that's gonna be referendum, like strategic, like a smaller group for referendum. But bringing that all back through the committee, right? And then from the committee to the board.
The question became, if it's not housed here, where is it housed?
Mhm.
And so just having a place and
Just trying to be more transparent with the work that the committees and subcommittees of planning are doing.
Yeah, no, it's fine.
And if we find that we have to tweak it to make it better, I'm all for it. This is just, what do you think?
Yeah, I think I was just a little off.
It shouldn't have said planning. It originally said board development, but when I did my copy and paste
Okay.
from one to the other, I didn't.
That makes more
copy on
sense.
the other. So
Okay.
my apologies. All right, then can you pull up the onboard? No, you guys have the onboarding process document. So. Our. Yes,
Did you want me to talk briefly about board development in October?
no,
Okay.
September. Well, yeah, September. Is there anything that needs to be shared now for decision making?
Was there gonna be a date?
Well, yeah, so.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Quickly, can you do it in like 5 minutes or less? Okay,
So I've been working as far as like with Drew, and then, you know, that's where we came up with some of those topics and things like that. What we're looking at is, similar to last year as far as, a retreat in October. Drew is taking a look, at his calendar. And so different topics that we'd kind of use a similar structure as far as we'd have, you know, relationship building with some kind of an icebreaker. And then we'd have, a review on our roles and responsibilities from last year, that dive a little bit deeper, but then also have available for new people. And then, the majority of the section then would be learning as far as, an exercise on management versus, governance in our roles as board members. And so, Drew is gonna be sending me, a proposal, outline kind of thing with fees and stuff like that. In conversation with, Greater Watertown Area Health Foundation, they would also continue support for us with that. So I
Nice.
can share details with you on that, so,
Awesome.
thank you for
Yeah.
coordinating that.
yeah, absolutely.
Tina, who's
so-
Drew again?
What?
Who is Drew again?
Drew Howick is our facilitator out of Drew Howick and Associates.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
trying to bring in a
a
third party.
professional,
Yeah.
yeah, a professional trainer for school boards and things like that. And so we would be looking at an October date. And so, I would be sending out a survey to compile availability. Last year we did a Friday night from 5 to 9 PM. So that's kind of what lined up. So I'll probably just duplicate our survey that we did from last year to find out the best dates. We like to have everyone in attendance. That's what it would be most beneficial for us. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, any questions? Then moving on, if you take a look at the onboarding process document that was shared. In the past, well, let's backtrack a second. Onboarding typically takes place, or we have it had taken place between the superintendent, the financial director, and who else from this building? That's it, you two? Really? And then the board president. And this year, there was a bit of a hiccup with Tony exiting and trying to get timing, et cetera. And so we had proposed to policy at our last meeting, we agreed to propose to policy to add the words or designee. And you'll see that at this month's board meeting, that policy committee did approve that moving forward, so that's up for first read. Tony had shared, I asked him before he left as planning chair, I said, so can you please put some ideas down on paper? What do you cover in these things? And I know that you probably asked for, somebody asked for it as well, but trying to get some documentation because Tony did a lot of things from Tony's brain and didn't have a lot of documentation and processes. So what you see in front of you, the top portion of it was from the superintendent's office. Those are things that we had talked about at our last meeting that were done. Sam, you weren't present for that because it was just committee and you weren't here at that one. So if there's anything that was missed that we can add to that, please share. The bottom portion of it is what Tony had shared was typically done at his house for onboarding of new members by the board president. I added in my thoughts in red, so I just wanted to make sure you realize those are not from Tony's notes, those are Diana's added notes. That he had talked about one, officer, there are multiple officers, so I just thought that should be added as well. So just taking a look, if there's anything that would be missed, we are putting together a Google folder that houses these documents, so if next year Brett is back as president, great, we have a document guideline. If there's a different president, we have a document, and it's not lost from one board leadership to the next board leadership. So I'd like to see, is there anything glaring that's obvious or missed, but we've never really walked through it as the president, but if you see something that you think should be added, or if you're wondering, hey, why is that there? This would be a great time to discuss.
Just when Sam and I met with Lynn and Jared, we went through it pretty quickly. Sam picked it up, I didn't.
That's what you're,
I had to go with Tyler. And he helped me, but Tyler's several levels above me, you know, and so I missed a lot from that too. A video would be great because I could review it and go through it. So for someone like me, that'd be very helpful.
and you, if I remember it, you were talking more about board docs and accessing different
Yes.
things,
Yeah.
the
Like-
technological
Like the
pieces.
technological pieces.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Documentation on any of that would be good.
Diana, I think this is fantastic.
Thank you.
I think it's great that we're, you know, just organizing those processes and then it, you know, it just kind of refines itself and what you're including and things like that to make things duplicatable. And that, you know, because I think things like that make us better. So.
Thank you. What we're learning is that we as a board are lacking structure and processes as well. And so how do we put those in place? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense to have some sort of a document for onboarding that, you know, that kind of discusses what some of those things are. I do feel like there's a heading under board member role specifically. I'm not sure what 1 of 9 means, but, third bullet point down, communication, phone, email received from staff and the public, and it says, reply but don't respond, president will respond, refer them to the appropriate link in the chain of command, forward to the superintendent. I do feel that that specific section is actually in violation of board policy.
Which board policy?
Well, which one do you want me to?
Well, I'm just, because if it is,
Do we wanna go down the road of Neola policies or?
well, Neola's what's approved, but right now what I'd like to do is I'd like to table this further, you know, deeper discussion to next time, so we can kind of take a look, because these are Tony's notes.
Okay,
And so looking through it, I just took what he had verbatim. The only changes I made is what I put in red.
right, but.
And so I understand what you're saying, but if we're gonna get in,
You're asking for glaring information.
right,
And I would like to point out where to find the proper information so that you can amend this appropriately.
correct. So what I'm asking is, if you can give me that information so I can take time, share that with, you know, to dig it deeper right now. I didn't time box 20 minutes or a half hour to dig deeper in that. If I would have known prior to this meeting that there were glaring things, you know,
When would you like to discuss that?
we can do it tomorrow, whatever.
Could you just tell me the location?
If you give me the policy numbers, yeah,
Just
to,
email her the information.
but that would have been, you see what I'm saying? That would have been helpful knowing coming in that, hey, there's a violation.
I'd like to know.
In there?
Right now.
Sure. I mean,
Yeah, but that's why I asked for the policy numbers to start with, so we,
So if we're going off active policy, communication with the public, that's policy 1100. It seems to emphasize the desire, the role of a board member.
no,
To-
this
to
is Neola
participate.
policy, 1100.
No,
This is active policy, which is
Okay,
our existing policy.
And I would just caution that if we're looking at policies that just said seem to, we want to, if there are gonna be specifics, if there's statements in the policy that says do this or not do that, we need to be clarifying that. If it's going to be a discussion on the intent of the policy, then we should just note that down and have a larger discussion later date.
Well, that's why I'm wondering, so we don't go down different, you know, do you and I want to sit down, at least look at, so then we can have a presentation, you know, we can do something more in depth at the next meeting. This is not something that's going to be happening next month, and this is something that's gonna be happening in April. When we have our new board members. So I understand that, hey, this is just what Tony had done in the past, and if we have things that are a violation of policy, we need to fix it.
Yes, and if that's, that was what Tony's approach was, then.
This was Tony's approach. It doesn't necessarily mean it's our, that's what the discussion here is.
Then that's not correct.
So by you saying, hey, there's violation in this piece here,
Yes.
then definitely we need to look, let's,
How about we start here? Because Neola, I mean, we can talk about active policy, right? That doesn't necessarily mean a lot, because we know that.
You know that you have approved other ones, right?
Right.
These,
exactly.
bylaws, so I'm gonna start, I'll just mention that one,
So-
and I'll call specific attention to the points that need to be attended to. So it's, 0144.5,
What's the title on that?
board member behavior, communications, and code of conduct. I think it would be useful to reference that first paragraph. I think that's what you're ultimately getting at.
And this is where Craig, if you can, we'll get those and then we'll get those put up on the screen
Yep.
next time. So we have,
Yep.
just so we have more information. I'm a visual.
Sure.
And so having that's where we're
Yep.
more prepared next meeting.
Letter K, under, that is very specific. But, under the heading board member communication, it breaks out on behalf of the board, letter A. And letter B as an individual board member, not on behalf of the board.
Yeah, and we'll go more into depth with that. Were there other ones, or is that prime, I mean, we'll focus more on the Neola one, because
Yep. that's
when we
fine.
go into our next set of orientation, Neola will be up and running that school year.
Yes, and I think Neola probably captures. Our.
That, so is it okay then if I do not reference 1100?
We can talk about it, but yeah, you don't have to. I mean, we can.
You brought it, so
if we're
I'm
gonna-
wondering where's,
If we wanna base our practices based on our current approved bylaw, all the bylaws that we've approved through
Approved.
Neola.
well, that's where we're going, because,
I'm gonna
That's where
make
we're
a
going.
suggestion,
Yes.
Just like we talked about, well, okay. I've mentioned in past to the board about as far as moving towards Neola policies and looking at processes
Mhm.
for like information requests. There's a process in place with Neola. Moving towards that so that when that policy, when we adopt the book, our processes are already there, we're not catching up. So going at Neola policy materials, we are going to establish our processes looking toward Neola.
Right.
yes. Okay, and then Craig, if you could do me one more favor, in the bulleted items that Tony had from his list, can you just, so I can highlight?
Just
And capture that.
everything under communications via phone and email received from staff and the public. I mean, that whole section needs to be addressed. And you might even want to reference policy. Because it's omitting, it's implying that board members don't have a First Amendment right to speak on their own behalf. To respond via phone or email. And that's a complete omission.
See, no, I don't take it that way. I mean, there's certain kind of a process that we have as far as responding, because you have to understand as a board member, and I think that's where the greater discussion
That's,
on those.
it's all in policy, and that's why I'm not trying to get
Yeah,
into that.
we'll get into that conversation more next time as we have time, you know, because I know we might have each had different conversations. Tony did this in Tony's way. It was very laid back, conversational, whatever. And so that doesn't make it right, wrong, or in between.
Sure.
But as we go moving forward, yes, we should be following policy. We should have something here that follows our policy, and if the verbiage isn't quite right, but the meaning is great, then we need to change the verbiage. If it's not what we're doing, we need to change that too, but conversation for next time. Yes,
I think too, the only thing, and I think we want to just be sure too, like, I know with the updated handbook, there's a lot of information in there, so I just don't want to, you know, whether it's Fred or whatever the, you know, whoever the president, like, a lot of the stuff is already in the handbook, so I don't know what this looks like. Like, I don't remember onboarding, so I don't know,
And I would tell you.
you know what I'm saying? So I don't want you to have to sit there and repeat things
This
that
is,
we can read,
this is
right?
the immediate past president's notes on the subject.
Right,
It
right,
doesn't mean that we have to adopt them.
correct.
right.
It doesn't mean that we are adopting them. It is, what did you do? All right, so that gives us a starting point. Craig, you're right, we should be looking at policy and using that as a guide. And so any onboarding would be looking at policy first, and Diana just wanted to get a starting point, so she, you know, took some Tony's notes. But then that's as far as I would go with that.
Thank you for the backstory. It's helpful to know.
Yeah.
And is there anything else that we need to add to it? Add to it, delete from it. This is by no means, this is what we're going to do. This is just,
Right.
this is what's been handed to us.
Right.
I'm not one to say, this is what's been, I'm always the one to ask why. Why are we doing what we're doing? Just because it's always been done doesn't make it right. So, yeah,
One of the things that was listed under, I believe, let me make sure that I've got it right. One of the things that I kind of had to learn about on my own, I'll shorten it up that way. One of the things I kind of had to learn about on my own, as I was getting onboarded. Not there was no opportunity, or that people wouldn't have been willing to answer me if I had asked, but it was the specific rights and responsibilities of a board member as outlined by state law. And I think that actually providing a brief kind of bullet point summary of that for new onboarded members would be really helpful, so that they can kind of understand and get a better idea of not only what do we do as a district, but also like what is the state saying, like, this is the expectation that you have on you. I think that would be helpful.
So like that high level, not obviously all of them, but high level.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
they're gonna impact you on a
We know it's
monthly
better than I
basis.
was, but that's Wisconsin statute 118 and 120.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I was looking at in 8110 from the previous agenda item. I was looking at those statutes, but I was like, not confident enough to refer to them right off the bat.
you
But yeah,
said 118 and 120.
118 and 120, those are.
So I put that down as a discussion part for next time. We'll figure out where it gets added. We have to figure out whose responsibility it would be. If you guys want to discuss that outside of that and bring that back, you know, nose goes on that one too, whatever. But if there's anything else,
Mhm.
bring those to the next
yeah,
meeting, please.
I'll look them up and I'll send you guys a link and then like my bullet point summary of what I think would be like a good concise. Yeah, a roundup of what those policies say.
But even
Like
as,
statute
as
sections.
general things that, hey, I wish I would have had this. Hey, I thought, I mean, I've been on the board, what, 2.5 years now? And like Lori said, I don't remember that.
That was a different.
It was a different, yeah, it was a
So it was
different
very different.
administration regime. We were hiring a new superintendent, but very valuable. If there's something that else that you wish that you had, you know, right, Dan?
In our last meeting, we talked about having some kind of training for chairs. And we don't really have that. Is that,
That's not for onboarding new members. That's a different
okay?
that's a
You're right.
different piece.
That's part of the professional development piece
Right.
that,
Mhm.
that Tina is doing in relation to this work.
And one of the conversations, just to give you a little backstory, not getting into it at all, because I'm gonna say it, and we're gonna move on. Is we had talked about doing different things for the chairs, but there's 4 chairs plus the president. So if we're doing that for 5 people, next year, you might be a chair. So would it be valuable to have 5 or have all 9? So that's been a discussion. So we haven't gotten any further than that. It's just kind of, this sounds great. Hey, what about this? Hey, so other things have taken a bigger lead at that
Yeah.
point, but note to self. All right, then moving on. Mentoring. Mentoring new members is also under one of the policies. I don't know if it's under the Neola. Craig, you have it right there. I know it was under the WUSD policy. I don't know if it's under the new Neola one off the top of my head. I don't want to go into a whole lot of conversation here, but looking into start thinking about, is this something that we as a committee believe should be happening for our new board members? Is it a means where we would pair up a new board member with a veteran? Is it one where you just kind of lean in on somebody? You know, I'll use Dan as an example. There's a few meetings that, you know, I'm sitting next to Dan, he's like, "Hey, what about this? Hey, what about that?" You know, and you kind of do that. When I started, it was, I knew Tina through Advanced Learners. So, hey, Tina, help me, I'm not understanding this. David Schrader is my neighbor, and so I'm out in the field one time, you know, like, hey, was that you just, what else, you know, and I had a question. And it became leaning in. What practice, if any, do we want to adopt as our structure? Because I'm one on structure, I'm one on processes. If that is what board policy states we're supposed to be doing, then we need to be doing it. But if it's not part of Neola policy,
I don't see Neola that specifically calls out mentor for the board policy.
there wasn't one, the name mentor, it fell under 8110, 1110, or 8170 are the three that I'm the most familiar with. So I'm assuming it's under one of those three.
Okay. Current book.
And that's why I'm wondering, I'm not familiar with how they melded together.
Yeah.
Because when I started putting these together, and that was one of the things we had talked about 3, 4, 5 months ago.
Mhm.
It got put in here, but that was before Neil, you know,
That was the difficulty of trying to match it up with Neola, and that's why I said 8170. We chose not to match up with anything because it really didn't meld very well.
mhm. So I don't know if it's. Sam, sorry.
As one of the, say again?
No, go ahead. 8170 is self-evaluation.
Okay.
Sorry, Sam.
As one of the twin new members of the board, I will say that I thought that.
I love.
Yeah, can you tell?
Yeah.
It's in the mustache. Yeah.
I felt like we received a really warm welcome. I thought that you guys were very friendly and happy to answer questions as we asked them. And I do think that there is an advantage to that over pairing people individually, just, you know, throwing that out there. I think the culture of the board as it's been is like, oh yeah, sure, I'll tell you about this and I'll tell you about this. And I think it makes it a little bit more open for people. So,
You just lean in.
yeah, I think
Okay.
that's worked so far, yeah.
I think it can be helpful to kind of have like a go-to person. I mean, maybe it becomes that lean-in person. I don't know if it has to be formal or not, but, you know, that way, if it's like, oh, okay, Tina, you're Dan's go-to person, you know, or whatever, and then I can, you know, I can even further extend the welcome as far as like, oh, hey, these are, you know, some things that I found helpful, you know, in case that helps you, like, it can be instead of them having to reach out about things, it could be, you know, so from that advantage as far as the go-to person being able to reach out to them specifically, but
And I'll use the teaching
it's
example.
probably different.
You lean into your team members. But there's another mentor assigned to you that does their check-in every quarter, whatever. Hey, I know you're talking to other board, you know, to your team. Anything else I can help you with? Anything, you know, have you thought about this? You know, so. If it's not part of, I can tell Craig is still searching. Thank you. Or you're not?
And it's not like they have to
I
be
can't find
on
it.
about.
Okay.
Yeah, and I did a search of the new policies and there's no.
All right.
Mhm.
So then I'm gonna table this.
Yeah, I think we just.
That we can bring up, early spring, late winter, early spring, that we do, if we are gonna do some sort of mentoring, we need to come up with a process. It sounds like what we've been doing right now is working.
Part of what, I look to, as I took in this role, I look to the chairs. To be that way, and specifically when I picked committee assignments, it was, okay, I know we've got strong chairs with this and that. So that you could go to that chair. If I have a question about HR, I'm gonna talk to Tina. If I have a question about fiscal, I should go to Mike. Those sorts of things, and that's where I had looked at it from a mentor perspective, and as. You know, new board members, you know, were on the board for a little while, we look to them, and as they step in the chairs, to then fill that role for other new board members. It just seemed like a natural progression.
So then I'm gonna put that down as this. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm gonna put that down as a suggestion for our onboarding document. That would then be a conversation that the board president has with new members. And you are inadvertently giving them a mentor contact, but can still also lean in.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Now we're meeting both.
I think so.
Because
Because otherwise that mentor may not always have the answers, and then you're doing more work anyways by trying to find someone that does, so I think it would make.
We're also
sense.
encouraging that dialogue
Right.
between committee member and chair. So it's a win-win.
Anything that's anywhere remotely close to this, and so far I found was, 8330. And it's, the board recognizes the goals and objectives of WASB, believes active support in this association. Beneficial to the success and welfare of, the district's officers and employees.
Yeah, no, there's the word mentoring. I have it on a file at
Okay.
home,
you're
so,
looking in current book.
and again,
Oh.
as we get to Neola, we're looking, you know, so. No worries, we got it from there, check and move on. All right, next. Superintendent Board Evaluation, I only had 20 minutes time box for this because I didn't anticipate having my conversation with John Schlender, but I had my conversation with him the other day. So here's background. We have been using the DAPES process for, I don't even know how many years, safe to say 7, 8, 10 years, whatever it's been. There is no current board member that's been trained in that DAPES process. We had agreed as committee that we were gonna continue with the process that Tony had kind of trained us in, his version of the DAPES process. Because we had the referendum, we had the strategic plan, we had so many other big items that we were just gonna kind of work through this the best we could. And that's where me being the person, because, you know, we each assigned our pillars. I needed something a little bit more, where are we gonna record this? What does this look like? So we have been, for lack of a better word, muddling through, getting some sort of documentation and things that are there. Digging into the DAPES process, the committee's directive was before I became a part of the planning committee 1.5 years ago, they started looking at different evaluation tools. Agreed that, okay, don't know, we're not going anywhere with that. But I felt that we needed some work with how do we score it? The rubric, we didn't do a great job with our rubric, we didn't do a great job with the goals, you know, writing them and so on and so forth. So the recommendation came to talk to CISA 6. And I had looked through information with CISA 6. We are on DAPES 1.0, there's a DAPES 2.0, there's a revisions, et cetera, et cetera. When I asked Tony 1.5 years ago, because there is a housing platform, which is totally private, it's not, because if it's on Google, so many others can get it, whatever. Do we have this? He said, no. Talking with John Schlender, yes, we do, we've had it for years. We've been paying for it, and so it's like, okay. So, moving now forward, what we've been doing isn't exactly what it looks like now, because we have what was trained in many years ago, and with revisions, we're here, DAPES is here. So, like I asked him, we had agreed that we were gonna change our cycle to evaluation in the winter, because that's when we get,
Final evaluation.
final evaluation, sorry, notification, renewal, et cetera. And he's like, that's makes a lot of sense. I don't know why we don't currently do that. And then he said, you're in Frontline, which is the same place where the teacher
Evaluations.
evaluations are housed. And that's on a cycle that ends in June. So he's like, I don't think it should be a problem, but let me double check to see, does that argue with platforms and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of things behind the scenes going. Long story short, I do think we need some training in how to evaluate the evaluation piece. And there's a cost to that. I do think that we need some training in the DAPES process in general. I only know what I've researched online. I am by no means an expert. And this isn't Diana's thing. Diana just was the one put in charge of digging out some more information. So when we look into that a little further, I'll use some background examples. What I learned in my hour conversation with them is that Jared has 3 goals in communication. Those goals should tie to all of our standards, all 6 of them. They pretty much tie to one. And when we do evaluation, it should be based on those three goals. Not on everything that we're, because as we're bringing in, those are the main pieces that are moving forward. So if we try to adopt the DAPES process as it is right now, we don't have goals that will be what we really need it to be moving forward. So either way, we still have to kind of continue on our path this year. We can't.
Through
change-
December.
Right, but understand that there are some changes that, and improvements, I'll say some improvements that definitely can be made. So cost. 2 in-person sessions would help give us the background of, an overview of the system, understanding of the standards, indicators, rubrics, et cetera. And then the follow-up session would talk about, collecting evidence related to the goals, providing feedback, for growth, et cetera. Those 2 are 60 to 90 minutes each, and it would cost us a total of $1,500. To bring them in to do the end of evaluation cycle, they would actually walk us through instead of Diana trying to, now we should do this, or what should we do here, as we fumble through, they would do that and help us through that process. That's another $1,045. So, and then if Jared needs any additional support,
And I will, because I need to understand what it is you're looking at, so.
so with that, that's a $210 per hour consultation fee. $400 a year, so right now to bring in support for this year, we're talking $3,000, $4,000 tops. Right now, if 1,500, 1,045 and a couple sessions in there, we're at about $3,000.
You do have money in your budget that goes towards professional development. And with that and, the Health Foundation helping to cover the other board development costs, I could switch it over and be fine within your budget.
Okay. Is this something that you believe we should pursue further? This isn't a Diana saying, hey, we need to do this, we need to do this. I just gathered the information.
So these sessions would be for all 9 board members.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, and me, I would sit in
Yeah.
Yep.
as being the one who's getting evaluated. But then I'd also have to understand like how to be in the system. And it shouldn't be all that different from how we do our evaluation of administration and so on, but I just want to make sure that I'm hearing right and that I'm delivering for you guys what you need as part of that. So I would have a couple hours with them too, to just make sure.
But as far as, like Fred and I were talking based on our last closed session meeting, where does this require, how does it streamlines that? With Frontline, what would happen is all of us would have access to the account. Jared would be an editor and one of us would be an editor. Typically, it's the board president. As Fred and I talked, we agreed that whomever is facilitating the meeting should not be recording at the present time because we're not as well versed in it yet. But what CISA, the guys at CISA were telling me is typically the board president is the one that's doing it. And I think once we get up to speed and running that it is gonna be much simpler. But basically, one board member has access to editing, superintendent has access, we all have viewing rights. And so it's all there. So when you have those meetings, it's all in front of you, all the data, all the pieces that you need. Okay,
And then question I would have is, I mean, I'm open to the idea, let's put it that way. I guess my thought would be if, if our current system is really all that broken, I guess that was my question, because I don't know that it is. And, but I'm always eager to learn.
let me give you a data point.
Yeah,
So in our system, we are spending 8 to 10 hours in the board evaluation, in the superintendent evaluation process throughout the year.
okay,
In the DAPES process, it's about 5.5 hours. We do 3 quarterly check-ins and an end of the year evaluation, that plus the goal setting, whatever. So there are 6 meetings. For theirs, they have the initial goal setting meeting at 60 minutes, 2 progress checks at 60 minutes each. Our progress check just lasted over 2 hours, 60 minutes each. a summative training that we would do on our own, kind of a thing, the training piece. And then the summative evaluation is about 2.5 hours total. So is it broken? I understand your point. For me, almost double the hours that's recommended tells me it needs some fixing. I don't know if it's broken, but it needs some tweaking.
I guess we're still asking. Yeah, I get what you're saying.
I think it's worth looking into. I'm not saying we need to fix or do it. We might look at it because as I started looking, I'm like,
To me, it's not about the money.
correct.
Yeah.
So with that, if you go to DAPES, the DAPES web, I mean, you can see some of the different forms that are out there. It's just very different than what we have right now. So for us to just kind of shift to it, I thought, hey, if we can just shift to it, and that's what I try to do in the forms that we did, just having a place to collect our general themes. That's a step in the right direction. That was a movement forward. It's a much bigger piece 2.0 than that. And we have to decide, is that where we want to go? We might say, this isn't the direction we want to go. You know, kind of go from there, Tina.
I think it's something that whatever we choose as our evaluation tool, if this is the way that we're gonna go, then we need to be good at it.
Mhm.
I mean, or get better at it. We need to be great at it. You know, if we're working on becoming an effective board,
Mhm.
I think this is a very important thing that we need to make sure that we're very good at, or that we're great at. Because if our employee is the superintendent, we need to make sure that we are great at being able to give that direction and to be able to have that process. And, I mean, you know, what do we expect of teachers? What do we expect of curriculum? You know, we're gonna expect this of everybody else. We need to have standards for ourselves. And so I think it's important that, you know, I get it. Do we really want to learn one more new thing? Like, we have a lot of balls in the air, but I think it's something that's, you know what I mean? That's, it's critical that we have to do that. We have to.
Well, I'm gonna say this again. I've said this every time we've had this conversation about the superintendent evaluation. We have agreed that we're running it through for sure. This evaluation cycle ends in December. If we're going to start exploring other options, exploring it would be for the next cycle. So we're still in DAPES for another year after this. So we've got the remainder of 24 and all of 25 for sure. Something new wouldn't come until 26. So just, that's the earliest that we could implement a new program. And I know we said, hey, we wanted to look a little bit more into DAPES, because some people are like, I hate DAPES. What else is out there? Well, we're not even doing DAPES the way DAPES should be
Correct.
done.
We hate it.
So- Right, so to me, it makes sense after doing the research, it makes sense to at least look at it a little further to see, is this the process that we want? And if we decide, now that we know what we should be doing, this isn't what we want, then we move forward with something else and we do that investigation. We'll have the strategic plan up and running. You know, hopefully things are where they need to be with a referendum. That could be a big rock at that point in time. But in order to make that decision, we need to get more information. So we're gonna have to muddle through it yet this year. Do we muddle through it another year before we start looking into? That's really what I'm asking of you right now is, where do we want to go?
I think we need to get it started because we need to be effective at that, because it starts with us. And if we're not effective, it trickles down into everything else. And so I guess I take it as a very important board development.
Lori, you need to vote.
Yes, I'm good with it.
Okay,
Sorry.
Dan?
I'm okay too. I'm okay.
Okay, so then we'll put this in the minutes as this is something that the committee recommends moving forward, to kind of go from there.
As far as timeline is concerned, that's the biggest thing, right? Yeah, it's just so many things going on. You guys can get rid of.
We've got a year and a half on this,
Yeah,
you know, so
Okay.
I'm not worried about that.
So this isn't something that, hey, we're, you know, the bigger question becomes right now, okay, we need training in the rubric.
Hmm.
To evaluate Jared right now, the way is intended to be evaluated, because the goals aren't spanning all of them, it's gonna look a little bit different.
Hmm.
So I have another meeting with John. Once I knew the direction here, I have a meeting with John tomorrow at noon. To kind of get some guidance that, hey, we got a lot of stuff going, you know, what do we do? Where do we go? So then I can make another recommendation of that moving forward. But yeah, that's why we as a committee said, hey, we can't do a ton with this right now, but I'm not sure we can really sit stagnant and not do anything.
Yeah, I don't mind seeing you 3 days of the week, but you know, we have to see each other.
No, just kidding.
But
Sorry.
it sounds like it may save us time and be more efficient.
When would this
I'm all for
happen,
that.
the training?
Over the next year and a half,
Over the next year and a half, okay, so.
before
Not
full
like we're
implementation.
adding more to.
One thing I would ask, when you talk to John, is do they have a process that we could roll into our onboarding training? I've never received Dave's training. I've gotten,
We got those YouTube like-ish video.
From Tony.
I
From
got,
Tony.
Tony handed me some documents and said here and walked me through the process. But again, this was 8 years ago,
Right, right, right.
but, if there's an onboarding, official onboarding training, when we get onto the new process that we could instantiate into the onboarding training. You know.
So I know there's a 30-minute whatever, but you're asking for more than that, and I will
Just
ask for
something
more
that
than
we've
that.
got them
Yep.
for, you know, as,
Yep,
as Dan pointed out, you know, some sort of follow-up documentation or something that, you know, you can go through.
John lives in Mayville, so he's not super far away. The person that was typically in charge of DAPES has retired. John's taking over, he's new to that. There's another technical person that's new to that. So we've got two somewhat newbies coming in, so they're gonna do a lot of tag teaming, but they're not charging us for two people, it's for one person. So we're getting a benefit in that regard, and Wendy, who's retiring, is still a resource, so this is the best time to get some of that information. So I'll look into, I'll bring it back to see what do they propose that we do? Kind of moving forward, because his initial thought was, well, I think that maybe you should have Jared write a new goal based on the strategic plan that covers, I'm like, so how do we evaluate that if he's
We'll get
writing
there.
it now? Hmm?
We'll get there.
I know, but he then, no, I see what you're saying. So right now, there just needs to be more conversation. We couldn't solve all of the problems in an hour. But I just want to give you some background. All right, lastly. Hey, not too bad. I'm only 20 minutes.
17 minutes behind.
Not bad. I caught up.
It's 18.
I'm not, I'm not judging.
So, strategic planning process, referendum update. So one thing that we had talked about at our last meeting is that a long-term plan, draft of it anyway, for the referendum would be ready to go. Do we have something of that sort?
So we don't have a long-term draft for referendum yet.
Was I mistaken? Was it long-term for strategic plan? No?
That was what Lori had said.
Okay,
Right.
but it's not. Okay,
So
got it.
you're getting ahead of us on the on that piece. That piece will be in September. That will have
Okay,
some ideas of where we're going with referendum possibilities. And we'll be able to start looking at that in September. Strategic plan wise, though,
Okay, I was confused. Are we
So I-
talking
that's what I'm
referendum or
like-
strategic
well, and
plan?
that's where I was like,
They're both
did I put it in the wrong spot?
I don't see referendum on
No.
here.
well, no, there is a referendum planning update. Second, strategic plan update was first.
Oh.
I will give you a referendum planning update, but
Okay.
what you were looking for is not
Got
that.
it.
Bullet points. Okay,
Got it.
got it.
Okay, mine's backwards.
That's okay.
Go ahead, referendum.
So,
Forget what I said.
so yeah, so then after that, we'll go to strategic planning. Good, okay. So, with the referendum planning update, as you know, right now, we are, working in two worlds that are going to have to start coming together soon. The two worlds we're working in are getting ideas for facilities, which would be something that would most likely be in a capital referendum. And the reason I say that is because if you go anywhere past 1 million or 1.5 million, and you try to do that with an operational referendum, and then you put on what your other operational needs are, you start pricing yourself out of any referendum because the mill rate gets really high. And we're going to have over the course of time, a plan of possibly different referenda if the board wants to continue to go down the route of two things. One, being able to still operate with our current programming. And two, working towards a plan that gets us into a better budgeting process and more efficient operational set. Because that's one of the things that you said when you met with PRA, which is we would like to take a look at what it would look like if we moved away from all of these small individual elementaries, went to something utilizing at least one campus, if not two campuses, to get into a place where we can make better decisions on class size and staffing, and we're duplicating a lot of resources being spread out over a number of different facilities. And that's a plan that will take some measure over time because the taxing authority that we have the ability to get into will have different implications. So I will share with you that Sarah and I actually have a meeting tomorrow with Baird to look at some of our projections. We've dealt with and looked at some projections as to what different referenda might look like when it comes to operational referendum. As you know, we also have a meeting coming up. This is probably Tuesday where we start working closer with PRA on what it is you gave task for to start looking at different structuring models of how we're going to structure facilities and also work towards getting maintenance done on the facilities that we know we're going to have continued long term. And so we're going to structure some of those out and we're going to talk to you as we get closer and closer to that into September to share what these opportunities look like, give options and start narrowing options. Between now and then, I'm going to be working with Fred, board leadership, and some of the admin team to say, let's try to vet some of these pieces as we're going forth. So whenever there's a question that I need to ask, I'm going to ask it to board leadership and he's going to either give me an answer or say, let's take that to planning or let's take that to, the full board, get some feedback on and go. So that way my work doesn't stop because I have a check-in with at least one of the board, which is the board president. They can help get the information that we need back and forth through whatever committee and or full board processes that need to happen. So that's how we're going to continue our plan moving forward. There is going to be a little slow or a lull in the period. I have next week, I have some time where I'm going to be out for professional development. And then that's going to roll right into a vacation week. And then I'm back for about 10 days. And then I go on my second trip that I have to go on to be in my friend's wedding in Thailand. So we're going to have a little slow period because I'm going to have to take some vacation. So not only that, but I have to take vacation because I'm carrying over like a lot of days from last year. So
We've got Sarah here, we'll be fine.
yeah, well, Jason's gonna take over in my stead at least this next set, and I believe Jenny is gonna take over in the set after that of making sure that things are available. But I'm not gonna say it all stops when I leave, but it's gonna have to slow down quite a bit on referendum stuff. The other stuff is not so
But we were at fiscal last night, there were some discussions, most of you guys were there. The discussions around PRA where Kevin gave an update on that, what they're doing there. And with some of the items with the referendum as far as budgeting and the implications of recent mismanagement of funds at MPS.
Yeah.
How that impacts us and things like that. So,
I feel-
we'll have those discussions.
I feel really comfortable because like I said, in the next coming days, tomorrow as well as early next week. I'm meeting with the two groups that are helping us with Baird on the fiscal side and with PRA on that side. So the work will continue even as I go on vacation because those groups will be doing their calculations and things that they need to be doing.
I guess my quick question would be, is part of the plan of vetting, like, the, referenda, to like try to vet that somehow with the public?
Yeah, so we're planning, I'm already working with Bill Foster from School Perceptions. They do our survey work for us. They have a referendum planning survey that they put out to the community. But before he could put that out, he's got to have a real tight set of possibilities that we're working on for them to vet and tell us. Because when he does this predictive survey work, you might have seen in the paper not too long ago that Beaver Dam is going out to 110 million, I think it is, for a new middle school. And then some other maintenance type things from some of the other buildings, some safety stuff that they're gonna do in some of the other buildings. Their predictability for November is that they're gonna have about a 56% to 60% passing rate. And he's pretty good. He's with like in the 90th percentile somewhere range of predicting those right. So if we get back good information, it'll be, yeah, we think you should go with this question. He won't guarantee it. Of course, he can't guarantee anything, but except for what the vote comes in at the end. But if it's got high predictability, and they got back, I think it was like 1,800 responses from their community on that, that give them some good predictability. And then he's just like, if you just get these people to show up and vote, then that's pretty good predictability.
The last time we did this, we had several town halls, and in different areas, we had them at the, high school, we had the auditorium, we had a cafeteria, we also had it at, I think we had one at the middle school. I wouldn't see a reason why not to do those, and, Lena and Jared.
Yeah, we would
be the rest
continue
of the team to get us, in front of the community for that, especially as we round the beginning of the year and we firm up what we feel is we're comfortable with, if we're going to go over the referendum next year. And what that question is gonna be, so that we can get in front of the community and explain our why on that, but definitely.
What I've always found in the past, and this was working with different boards on referendum work, whether I was at the, director type level like Jason is, or as a superintendent, the hardest votes to get are the ones at this table. Because we need not, 50%, 51%, we need 100% at this table on the question. Because if we don't have 100% at the table on the question and we go out of this room, then I can guarantee you there's going to be near failure, if not failure. So that's what I mean when I talk about you guys having to come together on whatever it is we're gonna ask. You all represent the constituents, right? If they see the person that representing doesn't even support it, they're not gonna go back into the poll box after voting for you and saying you don't represent this and vote for it. You know what I mean? And so just remember that they put you in place to make decisions. And if your decision is yes, they're gonna follow that. If your decision is no, they're probably gonna follow that too. So that's why we always want 100% in this room when we go out to something like referendum. And I know that's gonna be maybe a hard topic to make sure that we get all on the same page with, but we're gonna have to narrow it until we do.
What's the date? Is it gonna be April election that we're aiming at, or when?
So the strategies that we're gonna be putting together are gonna be for April 25.
Okay,
And if you say no and we can't get there, then I have to come up with other strategies.
yeah,
But we're gonna start putting strategies together for April 25. What that looks like is we're gonna have some real good idea of what they look like by the end of October. We're gonna do some survey work that we can digest the results of in November and December. And then by January, we have to have the resolution for an April election. And January through the April election, just like you guys did when you were running for school board, we are out there pounding pavement.
So, there's fewer voters in spring elections. Is that taken into consideration?
Uh,
Yes.
yes, yes, but I will say this. There's still, the reason we picked April around this board, and you weren't here when we made the decision as to kind of where we were kind of aiming, is we felt like this presidential election is going to be kind of contentious on both sides. We didn't want our school district to be wrapped up in that.
Yeah.
We want people to focus on national themes and national things at that time from our community. We don't want to be distracting to that, and we certainly don't want to get caught up in the wind of that. But we do have some really large statewide elections coming up in April even. So we've got some Supreme Court justices, the Department of Instruction coming up in April. So that's the state superintendent of Department of Instruction. So I think those will bring people out to the ticket anyway. But there are also more local type decisions, state and local type decisions, not this federal stuff, right? And I think that we'll still get a good number of voters out, but it's also gonna be a better focus on what we're trying. I don't want our message to get lost in big stage stuff.
Yeah.
Right? And so that's why we picked that.
Historically with April too, if you're close, you need to just tweak a little bit, you can fall back to November the same year. So.
Yeah, but except for November of next year, we don't have one.
Yeah, but I mean, that's historically, that's part of the reason we choose April too.
So if it doesn't go well in April of 25, then we'll have a February possible a runoff date of 26 and April of 26. But I will tell you that we probably need to pass an operating referendum on one of those two dates. If we don't, we're already gonna be looking at major cuts going into next year, not 24, 25, but 25, 26. We're already gonna have to look at some good sized cuts. And then if it doesn't happen in 26, we're gonna be retooling our whole programming. Because we can't operate, at a $6 million a year, $7 million a year loss.
And I've already asked Jared
Can't.
to project what those would be for the board, so we understand from our perspective of if this doesn't pass, what does that mean? We need to be honest.
Can I tell you what my response to him was?
Yes, we have like 30 seconds.
Yeah, at $6 million a year, right? That's not 7 or 8. At $6 million. That's about 55 staff members. If we use the teacher FTE calculation, we use that one because it's in the middle, right? And another $2 million in operational costs.
All right, I know we're gonna get other presentations down the road. Anything else? This was an just a brief overview. Every month or every meeting, we'll have just an update, always beneficial. Questions? Strategic plan update?
I put together a short document, just as a guide for discussions. Dr. Burke asked me to prepare for 45 minutes of discussion on this topic. So try to keep it to that.
I gave you 60 minutes.
Oh, yes, sorry.
You
Yes.
couldn't even say that with a straight
No,
face.
no.
I told you.
16 minutes. Did you not hear me right? 16 minutes.
No, he normally does 14 minutes and 2
Yes,
seconds.
So this is, shouldn't be anything new to you. Again, just an update. And I always want to start with our why around strategic planning. So really, grounding us in our why as a district. And then it allows us to, have a thoughtful way to celebrate the hard work and success of humans. And also to identify and then plan around things that we can do differently and better. And then the last thing is really just supports decision making. So those 5 bullet points of the why, I think, are summarized in that way. And so I just wanted to summarize the work in 2 ways. One is just planning. There's no link there, there's no document. Just want to tell you that the roadmap that you've seen before we're on pace on that roadmap, so we remain on the timeline. And then I think, it's important to remember that kind of the branding of the strategic planning is around traditions, innovation, and transformation, and we've tried to weave that into our communiques via email, our discussions at the work group, and our discussions at the internal group, and we'll continue to do so. And then, just a reminder and then forecast of some of the work that lies ahead. And so first is just a reminder that we had 4 focus groups early in the process. We held a community event, and then we had 3 kind of open mics for staff. And that was the kickoff. We have had 3 of our 4 community work groups completed, and we have one to go. Number 3 there is internal team meeting. We have that scheduled for July 22nd, so that's coming up quickly. And we'll really look for Lori Miller to guide us, but this is the work here. We'll be reviewing data from the exit slip that was that QR code at the last meeting at the library, so we have some data to look there. We'll be reviewing the words. There was a time in the middle of the meeting where folks put in words that will lead to core values. So we'll look at those core values. We'll look at the feedback from mission and vision statements. If you remember, people put dots and underline and circles, so we'll look at that. And then we'll also be reviewing the priorities that we're really surfacing from the work group. And the last thing we do in those internal meetings is always think about the agenda for the work group. So we have an email ready, and then we'll link the agenda and we'll send that out. That work group on the 23rd is the next day, so that's a quick turnaround. We'll work to finalize the draft of the mission and vision. And really, you'll see the parallel between 3 and 4 here. We'll work to finalize the core values and work to finalize the priorities. And so that's the work of that group on the 23rd. Then really, we kind of hand it off to Donovan Group to really do, to compose or put together this. I put draft 3 times, they make fun of me. Draft, strategic plan, right? Lori Miller and her team will take all the work that they've gathered, all the data feedback, and put together this draft strategic plan. And then bring it to the internal team for feedback and questions, and really to prepare for this group, the planning meeting. Planning committee. And so that's letter C there, is we'd like to share this work that once the internal team has seen it, bring it to you and seek your feedback and support. The next step with them to just bring it to the full board for feedback and support. It's vague there because the timeline, we have a goal there to have something ready by August 27th. And that's number 6 there. We'd like to be in a position, Dr. Burke, I call him Dr. J, to be able to share some components of the strategic plan on August 27th when the staff returns. And so we want to make sure the planning team, the full board is comfortable with what he would share. We know that it would probably be in draft form, but we want to be able to share updates because we committed to that to the staff before they left for the year. I'm well below 60 minutes.
Great
What
job.
question?
16 minutes.
Okay, thank
So
you.
I know, when Jason and I spoke yesterday,
I think so.
Yeah. The question then, which we probably should have known this was coming, that we may need to do a planning committee next month
Or what now?
to review before it goes to the board. You know, where I was concerned is if there's nothing,
Oh, yeah.
and then it just comes to the board.
It would be only the strategic plan review. It would not be a planning committee meeting.
Okay, right. That's
We
what I
would
mean,
have
like,
a shorter
just a
meeting,
short Meeting,
just
just
to
to get a
review
review of that before it
that
goes
before it
to
went
the
to
full
the board.
board.
That's funny. I just put it on here under September, not even, I'm like, oh, next week.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, wait, we don't have a month in between because we're,
Yeah, ideally, we'd be in a position to bring the strategic plan to the full board on the 26th. And then Jared would be able to speak to that on the 27th. And so,
And now I have shared with you that I'm gonna be spending some time vacationing. Jason knows this, as we're gearing up towards referenda, And as we're gearing up towards meeting our policy committee goals. I need to take something off my plate. As strategic planning comes off of his plate, he's gonna start being the administrator go-to for planning committee. I don't know when that's gonna happen, if that's September or November. You know, cause those are the next actual meetings on the calendar for planning. But
Total sense.
he's gonna take over the reins of this committee with Diana as chair. And I'm gonna be working a lot closer with Fred and that team to do anything referendum related. And I can't dump policy right now. It's just like, I wouldn't. I
No,
mean,
think
like,
that makes
you need your superintendent on every policy.
Right.
You can't let that go.
No.
So this is the thing that I can let go. And he's gonna graciously take that over. So if that means like in August, if I'm gone and you guys need to have a quick meeting to talk about strategic planning, that's okay, because he was in charge of it anyway, right? We can just trust that leadership to go forward.
So it sounds like we need to have one there, so we should set a date now, if at all. Do you have your
Do
calendar?
we need to know, do we need to do a check-in with Lori after the work group next week? Or I just don't want us
Yeah.
to set a meeting and then Lori be like, no, I'm assuming she'll have it.
Yeah, I
You get
always,
what I'm saying?
I agree. I always like to
Really, we're
schedule
talking like
something,
4 weeks.
right? I like to schedule it before we leave, but in
Okay,
this
perfect.
case, I would like to connect with Lori on two things. One is, does this match what she's thinking,
Mhm.
right? I don't wanna put her in a spot where she's not prepared. And I think it'd be fruitful for her to be part of the planning committee
Okay.
meeting, so I'd like to check her schedule, but I can connect with her before July 22nd. If that's okay.
It is. Excuse me, I'm trying to think of a way. Fred, you can speak to this, how difficult it is to try to coordinate dates and things when people aren't in the room with their calendars as a discussion piece. So I'm wondering if it's easier. And my husband would say, Diana, keep it simple. If it's easier to say, okay, of the committee members. I'm gone this day, this day, this day, this day, so we at least take dates off the table. So at least we know, okay, we don't have these people here on these dates, stay away from them. Is that helpful, or do you wanna just connect with Lori and Lori's gonna give us these 5 dates? And put out something of these 5, 2, 3, whatever it is.
Yeah, I would like to go that route, see if Lori can give us 3 dates, 3 to 5 dates, like the week. Either the week of the 12th or the week of the 19th. So we would have time to digest it before the full board.
I am gone on the 15th.
So if it's already the team, what I can do is I will commit to meeting, connecting with Lori in the next 48 hours. To make sure that this is a good time, this is the timeline based on the roadmap, but get some dates from her and I'll share with you.
Why don't we do this? Will you give me an update and I can share it out
Sure.
on Monday at the board meeting?
Awesome. Data meeting process.
Yep, thank you. There's, I think, 2 documents linked. I have copies if anyone would like hard copy. First, I think it's probably, the easiest one to, navigate and start off with would be the change document, WUSD change overview. And so that document, does anyone like the hard copy of that? Okay. And so, what we've talked about with Chris Malloy and myself and others getting some input. Is how, oh, I'm sorry, Just your head. I'm sorry.
No, I didn't want to interrupt you in
No,
the middle of talk. Keep
it's all
going.
good.
We got this. We
Okay,
can do this. We're a team.
Is how we can utilize data in a way that becomes just how we operate versus another thing, right? And so this change document is something that will work as a leadership team of the district, thank you. And a commitment to the board of when we bring things like initiatives or new things. This is the template we would be sharing with you. So we would be infusing data into something that we would be proposing. And so, for example, we would bring this if we think about going to bridges as a resource at the elementary math. This would be part of the conversation, is what data would we look at? And how would we communicate with folks? And it just sets the table and systematizes the conversation and infuses data into what we do. And so this is what, I'd love your feedback. But this is something that, again, the leadership team has committed to using. Questions? Thoughts?
To me, that was confusing because I'm a visual person.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see it in action for the first
Yeah,
time, so that way my brain had a hard time, it wasn't confusing, my brain had a hard time wrapping around how that will work. Because I don't see anything in it right now, so I'm excited to see.
Sounds good. Well, we'll begin to use it and, we'll take feedback along the way, right? Please.
I think it's a good idea. I mean, sometimes I sat back and I wonder why
Why are we doing what?
course offering is happening or something else is doing. And if we can get some of those questions answered right away, I think that's a great. Yeah, it's great. That we
Yeah.
can at least be on a same page at some
Yeah.
point.
You guys know that one of the things that I shared that I valued, and I still value, is having good processes in place, right? And things that can be predictable, right, as you come. And if we can continue to systematize things like this, it will be good. And that's one of the main reasons I hired Jason, because I understood that, basically as our research and development person, because that's what he does, research, development, innovation, strategy, right, data, all those things. He would be somebody that I could rely on to come in and put processes in place like this. So all of our strategic planning, all of our goal planning, even, trying to get people to follow the idea that you have 10 minutes to make a presentation, right? Jason's working on and putting those messages out and continuing to vet some of that stuff as it comes to you. So that we can have this piece, and that's what we're trying to do. We're just trying to make it easier for you to get to the higher level stuff, the bigger rocks, because if you get marred down in the details, that's not good.
I think this is also, thank you, I think it also will help, if there's a building initiative, it helps our principals think about how they enact a change. And so I would be looking for principals to use this if, high school says we want to go to school uniforms, whatever, right? I would say, well, yeah, let's think about it in this way. And when you're ready to get some feedback, have this completed, and then we can sit down and chat and have some feedback.
One suggestion, maybe naming this particular document, something to the effect of like district program or initiative change overview or something like that, or yeah, it's something that's just.
You'll come up with a crazy name of some kind.
I was really working really hard to not use the word initiative, to be
Yeah,
really honest.
okay.
right? Because
Fair
there's
enough,
some negative connotation to that, so I appreciate it.
No,
Thank you.
Whatever needs, you have to be able to make it into an acronym.
Okay, all right, fair enough. I can play with words.
Steve, don't challenge him with that. No, hey, don't listen to what he said.
Okay.
And don't tell the acronym to the new board member.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll keep it at that. as much
Well, I
as
mean,
can.
but like, but something that indicates.
Yes, I just told him, don't listen to the board president.
Something that indicated that it's what it's for, because I mean, change overview.
Yeah, it was originally like implementation checklist, but again, I was trying to, our initiative checklist, I think.
Yeah.
So I just was trying to stay away from that word,
Sure.
but I appreciate it. Yeah, thank you.
All right, anything else on that?
Just move to the second document, and that is, again, does anyone want a copy of this?
I'll
just
give
put it around.
Here.
Thank you. Oh, may I have one, please?
No, you can't. You're gonna go off of memory.
And so, this is again, a move towards becoming, Chris Malloy and I talk about two things. We want to be student driven and data informed, right? And we don't want the way we use data to be this big dog and pony show. We want it to become what we do. We want to use data regularly in a way that's valuable for every stakeholder, whether it's the board, whether it's a principal, teacher, whoever it is, okay? And so with that in mind, we're suggesting, I'd love your feedback. We would suggest moving to, this model for board meetings. And so not these data meetings quarterly or regularly, this would be part of a board meeting. And I didn't fill in the intended outcomes, but we would do that for you. And so what we are suggesting is in August, we would do a bullying data report. That's required by the state. And we've indicated some that are required, others that are optional. And so we bring the data to the full board meeting. And we would be looking to give 3 to 5 minutes of data. And there's the document, I don't think was linked, it's linked in this, but not in there, and I can show it to you. But we give you the same framework of data every time. What is the cohort, or what is the data by cohort? What is the historical data? Notable trends, and then how we will use the data. I'll give this to you, okay? But this would be the 3 to 5 minute presentation, and then look for, thank you, look for 10 to 15 minutes of Q&A and be done, right? And so in August, if this is a good idea, I'd love your feedback on this. We would follow this model at the August board meeting around bullying day. In September, earlier at the last official data meeting, we talked about giving you some WISE-local PD.
Yeah.
And so, again, that's not a data meeting, but we want to make sure you can use the tool, right? And then November, we know that our state report cards come out. That's optional, but I would highly recommend that we spend some time on state report card data. February, we have one AGR school. Remember the data meeting, that last one, Schurz is an AGR school. So we're required to bring the data to the board twice a year. So this one would bring in February. May, I think there's a real opportunity for us to dig in and understand access data. Access data is that assessment for our EL learners. And I don't think we've done a great job of giving you that data. So that's why I made that on the list, optional though. June is the end of year AGR report for Schurz. And then July, I don't know what it means right now, but I'd love to do a state of the district, really connected to our strategic plan. And so, again, I just said a lot in the short term, but this is what Chris Malone, Jared, director team is thinking about for data. Again, putting in the full board, 3 to 5 minutes of discussion data, and then 10, 15 minutes of Q&A. 10 minutes of Q&A.
Can we do that though as a,
But I think that,
if they're individual,
But if you get a small snapshot,
maybe it'd be.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, we actually tested this today.
Okay.
So he called me into the office. He said, I'm gonna give you a snapshot of this. And so he gave me a snapshot. We spent maybe 2 minutes on the snapshot. Had to do with some reading and math assessment data. I asked a couple of questions around because he gave it to me blind. You know, he kind of set me up too. He's like, which school do you think this is? Which school do you think this is? And I was wrong. But I was, you know, trying to estimate a guess because one was on growth, right? And we had a high growth school. And he wanted to share some of that data and some of the celebrations with me. We're actually going to use that with them. But it took us 2 minutes to look at the data, understand what it is, right? Because I didn't know what he was trying to get at until he showed it to me. And then we had about 5 minutes of conversation and I'm like, hey, that was really good. Because now I know better where our schools were on these pieces. And I think it's something that if we infuse it every month, just a little snapshot, it's better than sitting for 2 hours. You get lost in this one and then that one, and then you
And
just
we've
like,
all seen all of these now.
Right.
We know what you're coming with.
Right.
What it looks
I
like,
think-
it's just what the numbers are doing is
Yeah.
really.
anyway, if you don't want to do it that way and you want to stick to the quarterlies, that's fine.
No,
Yeah,
I think
either
that's
way.
great. I like that a lot.
And there are months that are missing, as you probably noticed, so, I did that on purpose, kind of a pilot year. Right, but we could add months, you know, Chris and I are open to adding months and there's no shortage of data that we could bring. We just wanted to, really test it this year, get your feedback and then continue to grow it.
I encourage you to leave gaps in your calendar because invariably the board will come up with something you haven't thought of yet.
Absolutely.
And then you can slot it into those.
Well, especially with the strategic plan too. That's,
Yes.
we're talking about all different things. You know.
Dan, thoughts, feelings on this?
I
We
like
haven't
it.
heard from you.
I like it.
Anything else?
I guess my question is, are you comfortable moving forward with this plan? If so, we will plan for it.
Yeah.
Yep, okay, thank you.
Then lastly, as far as future agenda planning, before I do that though, I need to summarize and let me know action steps if I've missed anything. I should ask you what all the action steps were, see if you could remember them all. We're going to bring back the conversation in, with Neola 0112, the board powers, blah, 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 looking at that a little more closely. Talking about the board retreat, getting some more information of that, setting that, for October. As far as onboarding, relating that to policy, where does it fit, having a deeper discussion? Craig, if you and I want to sit and have a conversation, or if you want to share with me, thoughts, feelings ahead of time going in, to help consolidate things. As I shared with the committee, I always shoot for an hour and a half for these meetings. We always try to do, but realistically, meeting every other month with the strategic plan, with the referendum, with those. It's not, I mean, I think that 2 hours is gonna be more the norm as opposed to the, hour and a half is the exception. Try to keep it, I'm a little long today, I apologize, but just kind of that going forward. So anything we can pre-plan and have going in helps us as far as time management. I'm gonna talk with John Schlender about a process for onboarding for new members, as well as trying to get a plan for training over the next year and a half. Because trying to do a ton of it in the next 3 months is not really realistic, but need to get his view on, okay, what's real from his perspective. So I'll get a little more information and bring that back. Jason is going to connect with Lori to find possible dates, bring those back to the board meeting. Jason's going to take over reins as planning committee administrator in the up and coming months. Whether that be August, September, whatever, but in the near future, I'm just leaving that as a to be determined.
You need a referendum update if I missed that.
No, now, that's what I took from the notes here. We have a referendum update that will come in as an every month
September.
kind of thing. Yep.
Yeah, well, every meeting.
Every meeting, sorry, not every month. I had on there from a previous discussion, set discussion dates. But I don't remember, I didn't put notes into that, what that means, but I put
Yeah.
that as one of the things that,
We will have to have set discussion dates, like when we have, like I said, we need to have a subcommittee of the planning committee.
got it. So I
To
don't,
talk referendum, that committee's gonna need to have set discussion dates. Because we will need information back for Barrett and PRA to finalize things, to get us to. Ideas of questions that we would finalize in October with school perceptions. Get out there and then get data back in November and December.
how are
so
we
can-
creating the subcommittee?
We may need to work with Mike on that, because I think the dual subcommittee of fiscal and planning.
Yeah,
for them.
so when I talked with Fred said. It would be probably good to work with the chair of fiscal and the chair of planning himself and then Jason, and Sarah Duncan. Because strategic plan and operation and
Okay.
Fiscal, which is what she's in charge of, her and Kevin. To do that work, so.
Got it.
That's probably what the subcommittee is gonna look like.
That's fine, I just had it just so capturing notes. September, October-ish is gonna be the board retreat. We have the next superintendent. Quarterly check-in, so a lot of stuff going on and that's to Craig's point too, as well as everything else. There's a lot going, so just trying to be conscientious of time and meetings.
The next superintendent,
The next meeting, superintendent
Oh.
was the
the
adjective,
next quarterly objective for the superintendent, so.
quarterly check-in,
Right, okay.
You're not gonna hear that either.
yes.
The one suggestion I would make would be, if you decided to do like float retreat, like. We consider that early in the term for the new board members. Like, is it a possibility to consider that like in May or June?
We had a brief conversation on that, and then it was end of the school year, there was just, then it was, okay, is it summer?
Yeah.
And then with everybody's summer schedules,
Between graduation, vacations,
right,
just the work schedules, it became problematic. One of the things that
but we did have that conversation.
have talked about is having multiple. Years and like that, we're having something, but I think onboarding may just take the place of that for development for new board members.
And that would happen April, May, the early on piece,
Gotcha.
so.
Well, I will say this though, when I was serving on this particular committee under the previous administration, you look at this, the way that the committee functioned at that point in time to today. This committee is, very much more in-depth and involved, and, I do.
Is that a good thing, I hope?
I think it's.
Okay,
Is
good.
that a?
Good. I was saying, I wanna know what you mean by that.
Yeah.
There's more transparency in this district, which is gonna make this work.
Well, it just seems like you're doing the things that I was hoping that a planning committee would do, and
You actually are planning. That's the best.
Yeah.
so.
Thank you for hiring me.
No, thank you for the insight. Anything else?
Oh, I guess, I don't know if it would be for Dan or Tina, but the revision of question 11 on the self-evaluation.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Revised question 11, difference of opinion instead of diversity in opinion.
So we had a number of things and I
Tina was
didn't write
taking
down,
notes on-
I didn't write down.
Tina was
Right, I
taking the
didn't-
notes on
I
that.
didn't write down,
And
but
that's
as
why I
an,
said I
but as
wasn't
an
sure.
action step, I should have captured revisions to
Yes.
the,
Yes.
yes.
Yeah.
So with that, yes, I was just gonna say, I don't have all of the things written down, but
Okay.
And then just don't say anything, but throw that to Tina on Monday, so that she has to quick flip through her pages, and go, it's part of the fun.
Wow.
oh my gosh.
We are recording this
Did I
meeting.
surprise anyone? Question on there will have to be answered. For the most part, I succeeded in not surprising anyone.
All right, nothing else. We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
For the most part. All right, thank you, guys. I'll end the
Thanks,
meeting.
everyone.
So Jason, we're trading Dr.